All right, my good friends, this is Mr. Davis. It's Monday night, about 10:50 here. This is my Unit 3, what to expect on Unit 3 of the test. If I were predicting things, what do I think might they ask you? Well, Unit 3 is right here. It's land-based empires. It's also known as like the gunpowder empires. The time period is 1450 to 1750. So go down to where it is in Unit 3. Again, you have access to the sheet, and I recommend you making your own copy and including dates because there's tons of great facts in here that would just go over the top if you had dates with them. So let me go to see where Unit 3 starts. All right, so Unit 3 starts at this page and it's going to go down. So it starts right off the bat at the taking down of Constantinople by Mehmed the Conqueror using gunpowder. I believe there's a big cannon that they just blew the heck out of the Hagia Sophia for days and days and days. They were taking down the Byzantine Empire. And when Mehmed saw that what they destroyed in the magnificent church, the Hagia Sophia, he lamented on how he wished they didn't have to destroy it. So we're talking about how these empires, these land-based empires, like the Ottomans and then the Safavids and then the Mughals, how they got so much territory. And they got so much territory through strong militaries. The Ottomans, I would say, they're the kings of this group because they had a really strong military. We often read about how the Ottomans went into Europe, and the Europeans were so impressed by them, and they got very far into Europe. So maybe like a compare and contrast essay between the gunpowder empires could be good. Which empire evaluate the extent to which gunpowder empires changed the Middle East and Asia could be something that you would see, and the Ottomans had a lasting effect throughout the region. The Safavids not quite as lasting as impact, but we saw the Ottomans and the Shias, or the Ottomans were Sunnis and the Safavids were Shiites, so they conflicted. And the Mughals was kind of a different anomaly. The Mughals were Hindus ruled by Muslims, Akbar the Great, and Aurangzeb, etc. So I could see how they might give you a compare and contrast the different land-based empires in the 15th century, or like between the 15th and 17th century, etc. So that might be something that they might be putting on there. Or they could double up on units and say, this is kind of what my theory might be, is compare land-based empires to transoceanic empires. But if we're sticking only in Unit 3, I think how they governed is something they could talk about as well. The Ottomans had tax systems, or they taxed people, that they allowed Christians and Jews to live in their empire. They just taxed them. They also went through the Jejurme system where they would gather up Christian boys. So that's one of the ways that they ruled. They did use technology, but they were really agricultural, so they kind of fell behind the times a little bit later on. So you can talk about how they governed themselves, and had a very good military, but they oftentimes had problems in the Ottoman Empire because the Sultan, if you remember, they would pick a Sultan and they would execute all of their brothers, so that there wouldn't be any coups to overthrow the Sultan. So you could see a governing one. I really think the Mughal dynasty Mughal Empire is a really good governing one, because the Mughal was the difference in, the Muslims ruling over Hindus. You also see Sikhism, you could see it, evaluate the extent that the Mughals had in India. Well, one of the extent that they had was that Sikhism is created due to this kind of conflicting, uh, you know, society with Muslims and Hindus living together. Or it could be something about religious toleration and non-toleration. Um, if you go over to the other really big land-based empire, the Qing and the Ming, maybe they talk about how do they govern their big empires. So I could see definitely some comparing and contrasting in here. Could be compare and contrast like religious motives for governing, could environmental impacts. Not really seeing too much there on that. The environment of these gunpowder networks. Russia is also considered a land-based empire because Russia conquered Siberia. I remember the Qing is the last dynasty. I know I'm bouncing around, so I apologize, but the Qing is the last dynasty in China, and they extended their borders. So one of the thing that everybody's interested in land-based empires is conquering more territory, and they did it with their weapons, superior weapons over people, and it was easy because they didn't have to go on big conquests. The territory was right next to them. So that's maybe a thesis statement. Is that the reason why these land-based empires grew so quickly is because they had sufficient technology and horses and weapons so that they could gobble up territory fast. They were centralized, so it was very easy for them to communicate with the capital. Whereas like maybe maritime empires, they they get a bunch of territories, but sometimes we see revolutions in the maritime empires because the maritime empires are the capital is so far away from the colonies or the trading posts. So if that makes sense. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be some type of comparing and contrasting the different empires, or just comparing and contrasting land-based versus transoceanic empires. I don't think maybe in Unit 3, if they're talking about 1450, I don't think they'll spend much time in Europe other than maybe talking about Russia. You could see something where it says how did leaders try to legitimize their rule in between 1450 to 1750. Um, if that's the case, you can talk about the Taj Mahal and the Mughal Empire. Then you could talk about the Palace of Versailles um, for King Louis the 16th, who was the Sun King. Um, King Henry VIII calls himself the head of the Church of England. He's the head of the church. He's the next thing of God on earth. So I could see a variety of things. Evaluate the extent to that rulers use religion to legitimize their rule. Compare and contrast land-based empires. Just be careful to see what the time period they're giving you, because the prompts. If I just go out here and Google real quick, it's amazing Google. I just say released DBQ world history prompts. I just want something. Okay, so here, let's just find a prompt and see if they give us a time period. Okay, so those are short answers. Okay, so this is actually last year's DBQ. Evaluate the extent to which the Portuguese transformed maritime trade in the Indian Ocean in the 16th century. So you're given that. Indian Ocean, 16th century, Portuguese. Three things right there. Okay, so let's go to our unit in years. Okay, let's go all the way to the top. So 16th century, that's the 1500s. Means it's gotta be in this two parts. It's a ocean question, so it's gotta be in unit 4. I go down and I find unit 4. Unit 4 is right here. Uh, Portugal is right here. Tons of X. Prince Henry the Navigator, Bartholomew Diaz, Vasco da Gama. They sailed down the African Ocean. Da Gama wins battles to help gain access to the spice trade, trading post empires. They won a battle to control the Malacca Strait. They tried to influence this area with Christianity in Japan and China, but had no success. Boom, right there. And look at this prompt. Boom, right there. Let's see if we can find another one, because that was pretty good. Let's see. Like if I just say, so that was 2019, maybe. Okay, 2018. Let's see if they give us a year and a prompt. In the prompt, I should say. Evaluate the extent to which railroads affected the process of Afro-Eurasia between 1860 and 1918. So railroads, that would tell me railroads, there's two things about railroads. Railroads is the Industrial Revolution, which I have not put this on here yet. I think I'm at the revolutions, but I haven't gotten to the Industrial Revolutions here. I'm just finishing up Latin American revolutions. But that would railroads and this one, Afro-Eurasia, means Africa, Europe, and Asia. So tells me industrialization and age of imperialism. That falls in these, so you can get facts out of these two units, basically. So they're going to be basically asking you about how did railroads basically change the world? And the answer there is that the Industrial Revolution allowed countries to make steel and make railroads that either went through their whole country or went way into the colonies that they conquered, and they could get more and more resources by going deeper into the country. Let's see one more, and then I'll stop. If you're watching this, you're ahead of the game because not too many people are watching it. I'm just doing my due diligence here to keep giving you content here. Let's see. I guess let's go back here. I mean, what else do you have to do right now? You probably have tons of things to do, but this is helpful. All right, I don't know if like the whole exam. This is. So this is somebody's DBQ that they wrote. This is just actually a rubric. Evaluate the extent to which the 7 Years' War, the French and Indian War, marked a turning point in American relations with Great Britain. This is actually a United States history prompt. United States, 1754, 1763. Let's go and see if we can find it. Okay, Unit 5, 1750 was the revolutions. Let's go down to Unit 5, find that here. Okay, the revolutions. We had the Enlightenment there. Okay, the American Revolution. British victory over the French in New York puts them to debt. Taxation without representation. Sam Adams, John Hancock. Thomas Paine, Common Sense inspires the colonists. 1770. Boston Massacre, 1773. The Tea Party, 1776. The Declaration of Independence. 1783. The war ends with the Treaty of Paris. New nation is formed. That's what I call context and outside evidence. So I think this thing can be really helpful. So I will call it a day there, and I'll catch you on the flip side.